Good afternoon, everyone. How are you all doing? What a beautiful way to start the week, isn't it? Coming to Change Now. Well, I'm glad to honestly welcome all of you today to have a conversation about a topic that I'm just passionate about for the past almost 10 years, impact-first entrepreneurship. And to kickstart this conversation, I have the honor to invite on stage the CEO of ECOALF, which is a fashion and design company reducing waste by using recycled materials to produce consumer goods. Javier, Goyeneche, please join me on stage. Yes, please. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Manuella. Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here. Before explaining about ECOALF, I always like to give a few notes about what's going on in the waste in the world. No? I think sometimes we're not aware of what's going on, and the problem is much bigger than we can imagine. No? Over 500,000 million plastic bags used every year, unfortunately, with a span life of less than 30 minutes. More than 650,000 tons of discarded fishing nets in the bottom of the ocean. People are not aware, but this is a huge problem, no? Especially because a lot of those nets are made of nylon 6, which is the best quality polyamide you can get in the world, and it can take centuries to disappear, creating a lot of impact in the marine life. You will see that ECOALF, as the years go past, we've been more and more focused in the ocean. No? We feel our oceans are clean. I'm Spanish. I live around the ocean. Our oceans are not clean. In fact, the bottom of the oceans are very dirty. Unfortunately, when a plastic bottle doesn't have a cap, full of water goes down. Aluminum can full of water goes down. So it's much more dirty than we can imagine. This, I always put it on because it was in a trip a few years ago in India, going to visit some natural dye factories. No? And from Bangalore to these factories, I was surrounded by waste. We might think that waste is going to disappear. That waste is not going to disappear. Okay? Unfortunately, our granddaughters, grandsons will see that waste. And the problem is that where people see waste, they throw more waste. So the problem is getting worse and worse. And this, I always put it because I received a phone call from a lawyer of the plastic industry from Brussels saying, Javier, you speak very bad about plastic. I said, that's not true. And that's not true, sincerely. I'm a big fan of plastic. I'm a big fan of plastic if you have to do a prosthesis which has to last 40 years. I'm a big fan of plastic if you have to do a window which has to last 40 years. What I don't understand is why we take the natural peeling of our fruit and put it inside plastic containers. And unfortunately, a lot of those plastic containers finish in the ocean. You've probably heard about the wire in the Pacific. At first it was 1, then it was 3, then it was 5, then it was 7. I had the opportunity to see one near Thailand, which wasn't very big. It was like 4 miles by 7. Fishermen said that it comes and disappears. You could see it for 10 days. It would disappear for 3 months. This was quite strange because it was like a carpet. So it felt like you could walk on top of it. No? Normally, that's not the reality. The reality is that most of that plastic is microplastic. And the problem with that microplastic is that fish are eating it. This is a study by Ellen MacArthur Foundation 2018. 1 out of every 3 fish ready to be eaten had microplastics inside. And this is 6 years ago. Okay? They claim that in 2050 there will be more plastic than fish in the ocean. I say that there's already much more plastic than fish in the ocean. It depends what you call plastic. If you call plastic only a bottle of 2 liters, perhaps not. But if you call plastic every tiny little bit, there's much more. And the problem is that there's not going to be enough money, resources, time, energy to take that away from the ocean. This is a problem which is getting worse and worse. No? We're working now with an Italian explorer who is doing the 8 most polluted rivers in Southeast Asia, and it's unbelievable. I mean, he cannot advance with his canoe. This is something this is rivers in Malaysia, India, China, Philippines, places, rivers that go along hundreds of villages. We've given them the containers, but we haven't given them the truck to collect those containers. So who's collecting all those containers? The river. The rivers are throwing tons of waste every minute to the ocean. But bueno, you don't have to go to Southeast Asia. You have it here in Sidon, 48 kilometers outside from Beirut, no? Place where they've been bombing for the last decades. A lot of waste near the ocean. Every time the wind blows, goes directly to the ocean. Or you see it in Italy, in front of the coast of Messina, probably the biggest wasteland you can find in the ocean. No? For decades, the people in charge of throwing the waste, of managing the waste, instead of managing, they've been throwing it to the ocean. Basically, la mafia. and you can find anything you want. So this is a huge disaster. No? Or Hawaii. Unfortunately, they claim this is happening twice per month. Before, it was once or twice per year. Or you can go to Atlantic. Somebody thought it was an incredible place to throw 7 kilometers of tires to the ocean. I mean, unfortunately, now it seems that if we're going to be 15 minutes, there will be 15 more trucks of 16 tons dumped into the ocean. There's a truck of 16 tons dumped into the ocean every minute. So till when? We don't know. Till when is the ocean going to support this? We don't know. I don't know if it's 50 more years or 40 or 65, but there's going to be a moment where the ocean is going to say, enough, no more space. When I tell you about ECOALF, ECOALF was born in 2009. I wanted to create a sustainable fashion company. I believe the most sustainable thing to do was not to keep on using natural resources. So recycling could be a solution if we're able to make like a new generation of clothes where if I don't tell you to recycle, you would never know, no? Basically, the fashion industry, it's a beautiful industry, but normally one of the most pollutant. We're normally podium, or bronze, or silver. It depends how you measure in terms of usage of water, carbon emissions, etc. No? It's a very polluted industry. Why? Well, because in my opinion, it has been managed over the last decades by a business model which doesn't work. It's about buying, throwing, a new trend every Thursday, discount promotion, Black Friday. This is creating billions of garments going to landfill every year. Look, there was an article a few months ago, very sad article, no? It was the biggest cotton company in the world burning 4,000 acres of forest in Ethiopia to plant cotton. So we're burning the forest to plant cotton, to make T-shirts of €5, which are going to finish in 75% in a landfill in less than 2 years. And each of those T-shirts takes 1,600 liters of water. There's not going to be enough forest, there's not going to be enough water, and there's definitely not going to be enough landfills to throw everything we're using. Okay? So, well, this, as I said, was our mission, create this new generation of recycled products without using any more natural resources. This is the purpose of the company, which was written in 2010 and hasn't changed a comma. It's probably the thing I'm most proud of. Okay? So, as I said, we launched it in 2010. Finally, when I went to the market in 2009, there were no cool recycled fabrics, so we had to start developing fabrics. We started with an amazing woman south of Taichung, which was recycling plastic bottles to create carpets. With them, we did the first fabric. Since then, we have developed, I think we're in fabric 638. We develop around 30 fabrics per season. We recycle plastic bottles, fishing nets, used tires, coffee, cotton, wool, cashmere, many different materials. Okay? Basically, from plastic bottles, probably nearly to 250 different 100% recycled fabrics. Normally, we need like 70 plastic bottles per every yard of fabric we produce. Okay? Right now, the company, well, the next collection is already 74% monofilament. This is very important, no? Because everybody talks about circularity. Well, the problem is that, unfortunately, most of the garments that go into landfill are not able to be circular. Why? Because they're not monofilament. So at the end, you're mixing cotton with polyester, etc. And at the end, what you do is a chemical recycling, which the fiber resultant is worthless for the moment. Okay, so this is probably one of the hardest things we're working. Huge effort for the designing teams to be able to have nowadays 74% of the collection ready to be recycled. Okay? Fishing nets. So as to you to get an idea, from an old fishing net to one of these garments, to one of these fabrics, it would be 7 chemical steps. From petrol to make that same fabric, it would be 17 chemical steps. That's why there's so much safe in water, energy, and emissions. All the new sports collection is made with not only monofilament nylon, but also with this new filament, which practically throws 0 microfilaments back into the system. Okay? If you know a normal polar fleece, which is a broken filament, throws around 20,000 microfilaments every time you wash it, the polar fleece of this collection throws 0.007. Okay? Used tires. This was the first project I did in Spain. I wanted to make the outsoles of our shoes. Finally, we decided to do this flip-flop collection, which looks like a very simple product, but has received a lot of innovation prizes. I don't know if you've seen a tire inside, but it's full of metal, oxidants, textiles. Well, we convert it into powder, and everything is mixed by heat. There's no conglomerates, no glue, no nothing. And coffee. We started recycling with a partner coffee in 2014. Basically, we get the leftovers from the cafeterias. We get the humid compound, we dry it. we mix it with plastic polymers, and we make huge fabrics, which have a lot of natural properties. Fast drying, odor control, UV protection. Most of our linings in our shoes now are all made with coffee origin fabrics. And cotton. Well, cotton, people are not aware, but cotton has a huge problem. It's very intensive in water. I don't know if you've seen the film about the RLC of Isabel Coixet, but when the Russians had to give water to the cotton plantations in Kazakhstan, it dried out in less than 2 years. So it's a big problem. No? We started in 2013 with 10% recycled content, 20, 30, 40, 50. And 2 years ago, we launched the first collection, 100% recycled cotton, which is able to be recycled twice. The third time, the fiber is no good. Okay. And this is wool and cashmere, which has been recycled for the last century. There's a city in Italy called Prato, which is very famous for doing this. Okay. We also use new fabrics. I think they are here also. I saw their stand. So we use new generation of materials, like we try to use hemp, which is much better than cotton in terms of usage of water. This is a substitute of leather made from pineapple leaves. Kapok comes from a dead fruit in India. I mean, all different materials. Okay? This is our new premium line, which is all the latest in technology. Upcycling the oceans, this is probably the project I'm most proud of, and we started at the end of 2014. We had been recycling fishing nets for many years, and one day talking with a fisherman, he said, Javier, you should come out and fish with me and see how much waste gets caught in the nets every time we go fishing. So I went out fishing with him, and it's true. Unfortunately, every time they pull up the nets, mixed with the fish, there's a lot of waste. So we decided to start a project. We convinced 3 fishermen from a little port in Spain called Villajoyosa in Alicante to let us put a little container, and all that waste that got collected, instead of throwing it back to the ocean, put in the container and take it back to the port. And then we would collect them every week and take them to categorizations plants to separate the polypropylene, polyethylene, the glass, the aluminum, the shoe, whatever, no? And convert it into polymer flake, polymer yarn, fabric and product in less than 300 kilometers. Because ECOALF never moves the waste. So if we recycle the cotton in Portugal, we will make the final jacket in Portugal. If we recycle the used ties in Spain, we will make the flip-flop in Spain. Okay? What started with 3 fishermen, now we have programmed in, now it's the 6th country because we started in Egypt, but we're in 79 ports. Okay? We are in 42 ports in Spain, 12 in France, 16 in Greece, 3 in Egypt, Italy, etc., working with over 6,000 fishermen and collecting around 500 tons of waste from the bottom of the ocean every year. Of those 500 tons of waste from the bottom of the ocean, not from the beaches, we're reusing 68% of all that waste. Unfortunately, there's 32% which has to go into landfill. Okay? This was one of the first products we did with all the waste from the bottom of the ocean. This is 100% polyester from the plastic bottles we get from the ocean. Okay? Basically, we are a multi-channel company. We have around 1,800 doors in Europe which sell ECOALF. We have our own flagship stores in Spain, in Tokyo, Milan, another one in Madrid. This store was quite amazing because this was done with 3.3 tons of waste with digital printing. We made this store in 17 days. Working day and night, the digital printing, they made everything from those 3.3 tons of plastic waste. This is the store in Paris, in Le Marais. Okay, this is our claim because there's no Planet B, which we registered in 2013, which a lot of people use. We're very happy everybody uses it, but it's been registered in 47 countries. We are B Corp since 2018, and from 3 years ago, we were reevaluated in B Corp, and we're now one of the 5% best B Corps in the world by puntuation. And we're also GRS standard, which means all our supply chain has total traceability, from the waste to the final product. All our supply chain has to be GRS. And just to finish, which I'm just in time, I'm going to put a video which summarizes what is ECOALF, what we do, and where we're going. it. Thank you. Thank you, Manuella.
Amazing work.
Hi. Just in time.
Amazing design. Are you all hearing me? No, right? Now it's back. Thank you. Well, super beautiful
luck.
design and even more inspiring story. I hope you're all just as excited as I was about hearing it. And we'll keep the energy and momentum high because now I'll invite on stage 3 other amazing entrepreneurs who are also doing great work, having impact as the first of their mission. So please, very warm round of applause to Sébastien Nunes from ClimateSeed, Luisa Beserra from Sustainable Development and Water for All, and Mari Granstrom from Origin by Ocean. Come on, bring the energy high. Amazing, thank you very much, everyone. So I'm so excited. This is my 5th year here at ChangeNOW, and the discussion around how to be an impact-first entrepreneur to me never gets old. It's just every time so inspiring to see people who are really doing the work of building a better society. And here we have just 3 amazing speakers that will tell us their story. I think before we jump straight into the conversation, it would be great if you could just give a quick introduction about yourself. I'll give you the challenge of introducing yourself in under 1 minute, telling a bit about what it is that you do and your founding story. If you want to start, Sébastien, please.
Yes, so I'm Sébastien Nunes. I'm the CEO of ClimateSeed. ClimateSeed is providing services to companies and funds, helping them to measure and reduce their carbon footprint, and then help them to contribute to projects that are generating some carbon credits. That's pretty much what we are doing in terms of background. So I'm a banker, let's say. Spent 10, 15 years in the banks. And then I tried to work for the good and created ClimateSeed.
Thank you. Anna.
Well, I'm Anna, founder CEO of Sustainable Development and Water for All. We develop and deliver sustainable solutions for water and sanitation, especially to rural communities in Brazil and other Latin America countries.
Amazing, thank you.
So last but not least, so I'm Mari, CEO and founder of Origin by Ocean. We have developed a biorefinery technology to tackle the eutrophication of the oceans. So we are using invasive seaweed species as a feedstock, and we refine them into functional ingredients which can go into different markets like textiles, home and personal care, cosmetics, and food. I'm a chemist by training. I've done my career in a big industry before, and Origin by Ocean has been a hobby of mine for more than 10 years. So I'm really happy to see that it's actually happening now. Nice to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you very much. I mean, you all already gave a hint to it, but of course, this is a panel about impact first. So it would be great if you can tell us a little bit what it is impact for you and how you're measuring it with the company. Want to go first? Mari.
I can start, yeah. So when you are an impact startup, I think you have to start from the impact first. So you have to find the tools, how to measure your impact, what you are wishing to have. And in our case, we started, of course, from the LCA, so the life cycle analysis, because we need to understand the whole value chain, the impact of the whole value chain, all the way from harvesting the invasive seaweed species, how we refine them, so whole chemical process, and then, of course, the decarbonization power we have as a functional ingredients in these different markets. Having said that, of course, one of the important things is that we want to remove the nutrients, so the nitrates and the phosphorus from the ocean, so we have to have tools to measure that as well. And what we realized from early on is that we don't have very good standards in this world to do so. Everyone is calculating the LCA in their own way. There is a lot of greenwashing out there. So we wanted to be very orthodox how we do it. So that's why we have developed our own way of calculating each step along the value chain. And we also give that as a service to our customer. So we actually follow that. We use LCA as kind of a guidance for our activity, where we need to improve, how we do it, and we have targets on that as well.
Amazing. Anna, do you want to tell us a bit about sustainable development and water
Yeah,
for
of
all?
course. It's pretty similar to Mari. We all need to understand better our business and do something very particularly. We cannot use a standard measurement system on the internet. And in SCW, we do use a lot of metrics, especially the SROI, the social return of investment. So in this way, we can prove with money how we can save money from the society, the government, by investing in sustainable solutions for water and sanitation. In this way, we can measure not only directly sanitation, but we can measure health, education, the economy of those families that we focus on, families that are in a vulnerable situation. So we can prove that, for example, before our impact, they spend around 50 reais, is almost 10 euros per month or every 3 months, treating the waterborne disease. And after our technology is implemented and all the social projects we implement with the community, they don't spend anything at all. So this money can be invested in culture, education, so many other things. Well, there's so many we can do with impact measurements, but definitely being a social impact startup, this is key for us to stand out and make people understand the importance of our work.
100%. Sebastian.
On our side, we have these two pillars of our offer. So basically, carbon footprint measurement and reduction. So here it's very easy for us. We are relying on methodology to help clients to reduce that footprint. So it's number of tons of carbon avoided. On the other side, for what we call the climate contribution, so clearly projects that are removing CO2 or avoiding CO2 emissions. Here we have kind of triptych approach. We deeply think that CO2 is not enough. It's just one component that come with biodiversity and people. And when we assess the projects, we are always looking at what is the impact in terms of carbon. Fine, this is a prerequisite. And then how is the local people benefiting from this project? How is it protecting the biodiversity? So I would say that on these two pillars, we have CO2 as a common denominator. But on the climate contribution, we had two layers, which are basically social and biodiversity.
Super exciting. And when we think about impact-first entrepreneurship, the idea of building a business, I think the ultimate goal, of course, is increase the impact that you're creating, also through that, scaling the business. One of the key components of scaling the business is often fundraising, right? Getting money in so that the business can grow. It can happen in different ways. You can hopefully get a lot of revenue in by selling your products, but sometimes before getting there, you might need other sources of capital as well, and that can be, especially for impact-first entrepreneurs, that can also be grants, that can be, other sorts of non-dilutive capital. It can also be venture funding from traditional or impact investors. I'm curious to hear a little bit about your fundraising story. What type of capital did you look for in to achieve which milestones in your company? So if you want to build on that.
I can start if you want, yeah. So on our side, we had kind of weird animal, because we are coming from a big group, BNP Paribas. We are a spin-off, so 100% funded by BNP Paribas, and then bought by AXA, another big group. So in terms of fundraising, it was let's say, a different story. We have only one shareholder, which is easy to manage. A lot of use cases that are coming from the group, which is good, business, but political issues as well to be managed that you don't have usually in a startup. Anyway, we needed to raise money, and I need to say that I'm not a very big fan of raising tons of millions, tens of millions, or hundreds of millions, and never measure the performance and success of a company based on the valuation or the amount of money that this company is raising, but more on how is it implemented. There's no free lunch. When you raise money, there will be at a cost. The bigger amount of money you're raising, or raising, let's say, we can change this word, the bigger, let's say, the cost will be. And when you're an impact company, you need to take it into account. Do I really need all this money? A company is not a duck from which you want to do some foie gras. So you need money, of course, to deploy what you need to deploy, your roadmap. You need work as well, people. But there is a certain amount of money that you need to raise to implement what you have to implement without going too far and having a big cost to reimburse your investor. So that's pretty much it on our side. We are kind of weird animal. We have a mix of capital and debt. We raised little amounts in comparison to the competitors, but we believe in work, more than capital?
In our case, we began, I was 17 years old, I didn't have much experience, but I started to look for funds from awards, accelerators programs that have these kind of funds. And just last year, we had our first impact investment from, it was a pre-seed. And we know that is very important for us to have this mix of experience in a time. It was in the beginning was 2015. We started operating in 2019. We reached already the, I forgot the name in English. It's like the revenues were enough for us to maintain the company and grow. And just by last year, when we wanted to search for more opportunities and develop more technologies, we received this funding. So every stage of the journey, we need to understand what kind of money would be strategic for us to use.
Makes a lot of sense. Mari?
Yeah, I think when we started in 2019, of course, we are not a spin-off of any university. We are a spin-off from my head. So it was a very different ballgame to establish a company and just go out there and tell the investors that, hi, it's me, and I would like to do this. And everything started, of course, from the business model. I think it's very important to understand, especially in this deep tech field, where you have to build infrastructures that what is the time when you are break-even, and how much you have to raise before, and what is the expectation when it comes to the revenue before that. And I agree with you, Sébastien, when you said that I think it's too focused on the raising rounds now, that we are kind of ranked as companies based on the fact how much we have raised money. I think it's a wrong thing, because it doesn't tell you about the market share, what you have achieved as a company. So I think there are two different tracks and the strategies you take as a company. If you focus on making an exit, that's a different strategy than if you focus on building a company. And Origin Bauschen is there that we want to build it as big as BASF. We want to be a big player. So, of course, in our case, we are looking at building a company. So we have to define, of course, the strategy of the investors as well to understand that we need to exit them at one point, but how do we do that together? So I think that this world of unicorns is so yesterday that we should really focus on the fact that how do we build healthy companies for healthy planet and people. And I think it's a different ballgame, to be honest. I think the business models we've been using in the past, they don't serve the future in that sense. So I'm just expecting that there will be a lot of brave people out there who will basically change this way of thinking and how to raise money into the companies.
100%.
And having said that, we have raised from VCs and done the normal thing, and we have soft loans and we have grants and what have you.
Well, congratulations on convincing all those people to join you and be on board in your mission as well. I mean, to all of you. Talking about convincing people to join the mission, one bottleneck, sometimes even more so than capital actually, is recruiting talent. And it's also one of the core pieces of scaling a business. So I'm curious if you can share a little bit, how did you go up about building a world-class team?
I can start. We go like that. It's a good plan. So it's all about people. I mean, one person can do only so much, which is actually very little. So I think that the team is the core, and also the fact that how you define the talent. And I think that that's something that we've done a lot of work internally to really define how we can grow the team also from the organic point of view. That when we have the people who joined early on, we want them to grow with Origin Bauschen. So I think it's very important that even though that we are a startup, we are now 27 people, we have to show people the personal development plan, how they can grow with the business and with the company. But I say that the talent is something that in our business, we need to have, I don't want to say hungry people, but motivated people that when they come to work, they don't come to work for get a pay slip every month. Of course, important, we all need money, but more from the fact that we do this together, we have a shared mission as a team to work on this thing. And I can see that we have attracted a lot of very talented people from the mission point of view, that they actually want to be part of the team because there is a clear mission what we are trying to achieve. Not just that we want to make this turnover or raise like millions and millions, but really like, why do we do this? And this is something that at Origin Bauschen, we always ask ourselves, we have these discussions that we remind ourselves that why are we here and what's the core value that, that we share. So I think it's very value-based, to be honest.
For us, the same. We see that when people look for us to work in SCW, what they want is to impact the life of the people. They want to see that their work really matters. They want to see that what they do is not just sitting on a desk and work whatever just to receive some money to live and afford buying things and everything. They want to see the impact. They are impact-driven as well as we are. This is really important to build a team. We know that we still need to have people that have skills, have the abilities. In the beginning, it's very important for the CEO to understand every possible job that we need to have in the team. But looking for the good people is a mix of abilities and being impact-driven.
I agree. It is one of the key component of a successful story for a company. People tend to think that as soon as they raised money, the hardest thing is done, which is not the case. Hiring people, be able to retain the people is very complicated. And it's really linked, it will really potentially cap the growth of the company. You can have the best idea, the best product, the capital, the roadmap. If you don't have the right people to implement, you won't be able to grab the opportunities and you will be capped on your growth. On our side, something, maybe that's a mistake I made personally, not recruiting an HR earlier. Having people, or let's say professional and experts with the ability to find the right people at the right moment. And now we have it, and see the difference that we have today to be able to onboard the people. So you have to identify the right people and then to onboard them to make sure that they are adapting to the culture, they have the right skills, the right mindsets, they are sharing the why. I like this expression, sharing the why we are doing it, and then retaining. And a company, or the culture of a company, will dramatically change between the startup phase and the scaling phase. When you are scaling, you're implementing some processes, and you will see that people that are basically here from the beginning don't find this new situation as comfortable as previously, and they're not sharing anymore the why. And this is kind of trauma in the company when you see part of the beginners or the people that were here at the foundation that are leaving because they are not able to recognize the new company and their own values. So that's a tricky thing. That's something, my recommendation to everybody that wants to launch a business, I would say two recommendations. The first one is hire illegal people with you. It will be your guardian angel. You will have the salespeople coming on one here saying you can do that, and that. Fine. And then you have the legal saying, are you sure? Which is super important. And the second one is HR.
Wow, super interesting. I think those good pieces of advice is usually what many of us actually come to ChangeNOW for, is to learning from each other's journey. And something which we hear as being at least a common trajectory in the entrepreneurial world is the big roller coaster that the journey looks like, right? It's full of high and lows, and I mean, yeah, I mean, you already shared a little bit of a lesson, but it would be great to maybe start with a high. Let's go first with a high. Can you share one moment or something about the business that makes you really, really proud? And of course, that's actually an invitation to brag. So feel free to really mention something that that you are particularly proud of. Go ahead, Anna.
Okay, for me, it was the start of the journey. And when I first started, actually, I was a scientist. I wasn't exactly an impact entrepreneur. I began with 15 years old by reading a book about the driest region of Brazil and how people suffer because they don't have access to clean water and sanitation. And then, as I had this passion for science, I tried to develop a technology that I, with 15 years old, could create by myself and people could replicate. And that's when I came with the technology called Aqualuz that cleans the water using just the sun radiation. It lasts for 20 years, and the only maintenance needed is basically cleaning with water and soap. And basically, this is the perfect solution for the driest region for Brazil and for the countries as well that has the same climate. And for me, it was I developed a technology that could change the lives of the people. Of course, no one believed me at the beginning. It was a very long journey until we finally could start selling the technology. It was I had the idea with it was 2013, and we just started selling by 2019. It was 6 long years trying to prove myself as not only a scientist but as impact entrepreneur. And finally, now we have some very important recognition by UN, UNESCO, MIT, and that's when people started to believe that the water really matters and really could cause the difference in the lives of the people.
Some accreditation helped your journey. Yeah, come on, warm up applause.
Thank you.
Well deserved.
I think there are a lot of, I would like to brag about so many things, but I choose one.
Come on.
It has been the growth in our team in 24 hours when we launched our first product together with a big brand. It was beautiful to see how our team changed from this very, I would say, R&D focused, process focused to commercial team. And it was very beautiful. We screwed up a lot of things along the way. Everything went wrong more or less, and then we learned. And it was beautiful to see that our team, we kept this type of empathy with each other, and everyone was kind of raising each other when it was very, very difficult. So I would say that was one of the best moments that we experienced together, definitely.
On my side, I think that when you're an entrepreneur, you're very focused on the operational stuff. You have your macro vision, your roadmap that you want to achieve, but you're really focused on the day-to-day job, all the problems you need to deal with. At some point, I think it's really interesting to drop the pen and look at all that is done and with the team. So, and basically today, if I remember in 2015, when I was sitting at my desk, with the idea of building ClimateSeed, spending 2 years to try to explain just what I wanted to do and getting the okay to proceed and to go ahead. And now it's a 40 people company, 200 clients in 2 countries. We don't raise so much money actually when you compare to the competitors that raised tens or hundreds of millions. We have less than that, and actually, thanks to our work, we did that, we achieved that. And one particular moment was basically last November. We went with the team in a project that we funded in India, which is an agroforestry project, and we're basically helping farmers in India, poor farmers that don't have any income, by planting trees in their land. It's basically helping to clean the soil and giving them a little revenues in order to just have the minimum to live. And we shared this moment with the farmers. It was an incredible moment. So seeing really what we did in a few years, what we did, and how we are helping them.
Amazing. Well, thank you to the 3 of you for the inspiring words and story. And it would be nice, now that we mentioned the high, to share a little bit of the hard moments as well, because we know that it's usually with struggle and failure, actually, that we learn the most. And it would be amazing if you could just share with us maybe one hard lesson learned that might serve as an inspiration to some of the people that were, here passionate about hearing your stories as well. So maybe they will already just learn from it and avoid some of the mistakes.
I can start. So actually, back to what we discussed previously, HR. It's a very big frustration when you're a CEO. You have, your roadmap, your vision. You know what you can do, and you're not able to implement because part of the team is not anymore in line with what you're building, or it's super complicated to find the right people to implement what you have to implement. So this is, for me, the biggest frustration I experienced since the beginning of ClimateSeed. And then I've learned, so boosting the HR team, the processes of integration of people, trying to get more, let's say, linked with all the people, spend some time with them, coffees to understand what they need, what they think is very important.
Very helpful advice.
Well, I want to give you an example with a graph. You imagine a graph. At the beginning, we are in this place where we don't know almost nothing about the business, and we don't know how to project the time and money needed to implement the things. So we think that everything will be easier, will be simple, will be cheap. And then as we are starting to learn more about this particular business, we understand that we need more money, we need more time, we need more people with more skills different than we have. And then the challenge is a long journey.
I think, yes, there are, of course, a lot of failures, but I'm so positive person that I never talk about failures as such, because I think failure is something that is so bad that you can't undo the situation anymore. So in my case, I always feel that the failure comes with people. I think I have failed quite a lot of times, actually, when it comes to hiring and when it comes to building and support the team. I think people business is the most difficult business. I think the chemical processes and the products and seaweed and what have you, way easier to build than people. And it just shows that I think we underestimate in general the time you have to put in to build the team and give support to people. So I think most of the failures that we have faced come from the fact that we have hired a person, we have realized that unfortunately we have to go to separate ways. It's tough for everyone. And when that happens, then I feel that something has gone wrong in the process, so I call it more or less a failure. But most of them, they are really related to people.
Amazing. So maybe as a final word of advice to everyone, impact first business is also a business of people, and finding the best talent will be the core and really the key to unlocking a successful journey and an impactful one, hopefully. So I really wish you great success for the three of you. You're doing amazing work. Thank you so much for joining this panel. A big warm of applause for all of them. Thank you. Thank you very much. And now for the third part of the session, I want to invite on stage Tina Dreimann, who is working at Better Ventures. We've heard the perspective of... we have some sound music coming in. Come on, Tina. Thank you.
Do I sit with you?
Please do. Please.
Good evening.
Yeah, very, very excited to welcome you here. We had the pleasure of hearing 4 entrepreneurs. Initially, Javier, who told us the story of ECOALF, and then those 3 amazing folks that shared a little bit of how they see impact first and how they led the journey for impact first entrepreneurship. And now we're hearing the investor perspective, so it's really good to have another investor on stage. And maybe you can start by telling us a little bit about your journey and what led you to Better Ventures.
I would love to do that. So I'm now over 40 years old, but I've always been an optimist. I've always been into nature. I grew up out in the country south of Munich and studied cultures. So at the end of these studies, I actually wanted to join the World Wildlife Fund. And they didn't want me to join. It said 10 years of work experience and in the second line, management consulting. So I thought, okay, maybe it makes sense to become a consultant. You learn a lot, you get a lot of important contacts. And I worked with Bain & Company for 5 years. Also had colleagues in Paris here, which I really liked a lot. And over the course of my life, I accumulated experience in startups and scale-ups. And every 4 months, I was a bit restless because I knew I wanted to make a difference. So I always was a person who wanted to leave a positive footprint on this earth, but I wasn't there yet. So luckily, and that's the end of the story, or the beginning of the Better Ventures stories during Corona, I was building new businesses together with my two co-founders called Christoph and Cedric. And Corona hit us really badly. So within just 1 week, we went from 30% growth down to 30% of the revenue base. And that helped us because also the guys suddenly said, ooh, the world is burning and we're building wedding businesses. We're doing something wrong. And that was the beginning of Better Ventures, where we truly said, hey, we can do something about it. Founders are the solution. Founders are the ones who are innovative, they are fast, and we need to accelerate them.
Fantastic. And tell me a bit more about Better Ventures, like the thesis of the fund, if you can share a bit more about it.
Yeah, our fund thesis is that we're not a fund. I have to add that, even so we give venture capital. We're a group of entrepreneurs who all have built or ran businesses before. And we even have data that if you ask a founder at the end of their successful journey, like who of your investors has helped you most and has added most value to your journey, it's sadly not the funds or inactive angels, but it's the ones who've done it before. So we decided to aggregate and create a movement with entrepreneurs who have the experience and who want to actively not only give their capital, but also their experience to the ambitious founders we invest in.
Fantastic. I can totally relate. Working for a fund that is also operator-led, it makes a total difference.
It does,
Having gone
absolutely.
through the experience of being in a business before helping others in the journey. And from your perspective as a fellow investor, what are the sectors that you're now very excited about, where you see a huge potential for both the impact component and the business component to go hand in hand and build exciting ventures?
Yeah, first of all, I truly believe in the necessity that we need an economy that combines both. Mm-hmm. So there's no way around it. If you're data-driven and if you read the stats, we need to stay within the planetary boundaries of our world and not, I would say, use 1.7 Earths per year as humans. With Better Ventures, we have a very agnostic approach. We invest in multiple industries. That means in people and planet along SDGs. And over the last 3 years, we've made investments mainly in energy, circularity in resources, and health. Altogether, 39 companies we already invested in, and I love every single one of them.
Very exciting. Maybe you can give a few examples of those sectors, including companies from the portfolio that excites you.
Absolutely. I love to discuss them with my sons as well. And we have made one investment in Greenlight, which is a carbon emission binding technology. So from the air, it grabs the CO2 and converts it into a liquid. And it was really funny because I told my son Tom about it, and he said, "Oh, that makes sense. We need to do that." But he then asked, does it fly around or is it installed? And I said, "Okay, yeah, good question. I think it's installed. It is." And beyond that, we invested in biodegradable materials in the healthcare sector, because if you look into hospitals, they have to throw away everything, and it's much more fun if you can compost it right away. Then one of my favorite startups from Munich is a, artificial intelligence-driven forest company. So they actually monitor forests, and doing that, they help the foresters to create not only a better forest management, but even carbon credits that are really accurate. So there's no greenwashing anymore in forestation.
Super exciting sectors.
I love all of them.
And maybe you can share with us a little bit as well, what are the sectors that you are not very excited about? Let's say sectors that you feel maybe are a little bit overhyped and receive more attention than they should.
Yeah, I will tell you very bluntly, if the 100th SaaS company doing ESG accounting for big companies is applying for funding, we won't solve our biggest problems just by software, even though I love the business models. And also, if you're just doing accounting, where you stand, you won't make a difference. So I'm also a big fan
thinking about impact versus doing the ESG reporting, even though it's also necessary. And there's a lot of money in that, of course.
Yeah, it makes sort of sense. And other areas that you would consider maybe in the next frontier? So let's say sectors that you already identified would have massive impact potential, but haven't yet seen, many pitch decks or many companies addressing them, and that you'd love to see more. Maybe there are some folks here in the audience that are attending the event that might be solving for some of those challenges that you found.
I love that question because in the last 3 years, everything has been about climate tech. But if you look into our planetary boundaries, for example, we have equally critical problems. Like you are also into food and ag tech, and sad to say that this field lost in attraction, even though it's a huge impact potential, like how we as humans consume food.
100%, yeah. With Mudcake, so the fund that I work at, that's exactly the core of our thesis, is how to address and reshape the food system.
Yeah, and if you combine all the food waste we have yearly, it's the 3rd biggest country in terms of CO2 emissions. So there's a huge lever in that. I think we don't have to look anymore. All the stats are there. I can recommend the Resilience Center from Stockholm. I can recommend Project Drawdown as a source on how to build businesses. And also last month, we co-created a circularity report with the University of Munich. And it seems that there is more funding available for circularity startups right now than there are startups. So that's definitely a good space to be in right now.
Very exciting. So yeah, food waste, definitely 1/3 of what's produced is missed, is lost. So definitely something that we should address. And more circular economy. We saw a few companies already working with it here today, and it was so inspiring. And apparently there is more capital than there might be solutions. So we should still be looking for those. And for those there working in those challenges, you should look for Tina later to maybe propose your ideas on. And then, let's say, some of those companies will come to you and propose their ideas. As an investor, what are the key criteria that you would be looking at? Because there are usually a few things, right, that drive your selection process. Of course, impact being one when you are an impact investor. But there's also the team, there is the timing, whether it's right, there is the TAM, so the size of the market. Maybe for you, one of those, might be more important than other, or, particular criteria that you look at.
We can do a deep dive in that. So overall, we have a list of over 60 investment criteria.
Oh, wow.
And some have a must-have to it, and others are nice-to-haves, all in the spaces that you just mentioned. But since we're early-stage investors, the team is most important. Impact is a given, particularly in this space, right? So we have an impact logic and what we look at. And afterwards, like once we say, okay, yes, this team is solving a big problem at the root cause, we are then looking at the team. And the team has multi-dimensions for myself. So firstly, the question is there a driven founder in that? Are they passionate about what they do? I also love the topic diversity. However, I'm not only talking about women and men. So a diverse team for myself is also a team that combines different functional experiences, different age classes, different networks, different backgrounds. And we always try to check, like, what does this business model need to be successful in the market? And does the team already bring that to the table? Now, the fun fact is, you can ask any investor probably in this room, like, what's most important, and they will say team, 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 particularly in the early stage. But then you ask the investors, what do you do about the team or with the team? And often they say, we go for lunch. What we do with Better Ventures, firstly, we have the entrepreneurs who recognize like-minded people. Secondly, we also do personality profiles with the teams. So we have a very data-driven approach. Doesn't mean that it's like a hurdle, but we use this data, we use the profiles to go into a discussion with the team. And I'm shocked that we actually get positive feedback on that. because the teams appreciate that you actually take the time to really get to know them and discuss their strengths, their white spots, how they can improve the setup. And yeah, I'm surprised, but I'm happy that we're doing it and thereby really get to know the team before we invest.
Amazing. Very in-depth analysis when we're looking at the team. And it's interesting because it does connect back to the discussion that we were having before about how people are fundamentally the ones driving the business. Of course, as investors, we'll be looking mostly at the founding team, but so important as well who you bring on board to the table.
It's also driven by the fact that we're investing that early, so in pre-seed and seed. And usually the angels invest by themselves, so they don't have much time to really look into teams in depth. But since we're already more than 70 angels, we can share this practice and make a way more profound analysis before everyone takes their decision then by themselves.
Super interesting. And maybe you can share a little bit some mistakes that founders make when pitching to you. So, I mean, of course, team is the key component, but when they are presenting, there might be a variety of aspects or topics that sometimes they get wrong. And maybe if you can help some people in the audience as well understand what is important when pitching an investor that can help them for the next fundraising journey.
I think, first of all, I think everyone makes mistakes. So it's rather how we deal with those mistakes, right? Even when pitching. So we've never let anyone down who's made a little mistake, as long as you know how to handle it afterwards. However, what I'm really allergic against is when the team doesn't know their data. So, for example, you have a business model in social dynamics and you don't know like how many users you have and how active they are. Like you should really know your KPIs, even if you're early stage, or particularly if you're early stage, to make the right decisions. So know your numbers.
Amazing, yeah. Makes sense in any business, but particularly I think in the impact first world, where you should not only know how are things with your bottom line, but also what is the impact that you're creating.
Exactly.
Your number makes sense, is even this really a big problem that you're addressing? So yeah, of course, coming with the right data is a key component in pitching, and I think in business in general.
And we can measure anything, because often the question is, since we're agnostic and not only focused on one space, it's like, how do you measure your impact? And every startup should be able to account at least for one impact KPI, and there are fantastic frameworks out there already. The Global Impact Investing Network gives us the IRIS catalog where you can look up the KPIs for your startup. So there's a lot of guidance there already. And I'm really sad always when people say, yeah, but we can't measure it yet. Yes, you can. You can build hypotheses, you can build a numbers-driven vision on your impact and the business. So no excuses. No excuses.
Well, I'm 100% on board with you on that one. And I'm curious, maybe, let's say something that other people might not be so on board with. Tell me, what is your unique perspective that most people in the impact space might disagree with?
I lately disagreed with a family office, and they had raised a little fund of 10 million, which is too small for the impact space. And the pitch said, return despite impact.
Oof.
Oof. I mean, I think I'm talking to the wrong audience, but I have to say that we are still in a huge bubble here. So we know that impact equals return, and given the regulatory changes, giving the customer demand, that's the hottest space to be in right now for return as well. And that's also how more classic investors are luckily, because we need a lot of investors, are luckily moving into the space, equal entrepreneurs, like classic entrepreneurs who've built normal startups before are now working in green tech and climate tech, and we need them because they have the experience, and we all need to be fast. But we really have to be aware of the fact that many people out there are still afraid to go into impact investing because they think they can't preserve their capital that way. So they mistake it with philanthropy, and it's not.
I think in this audience, most of us might, I would dare to say that everyone should be already convinced by now that impact and business can absolutely go hand in hand.
Exactly.
But it is always interesting to see that outside of the bubble, there are still people out there who might see it as two opposite possibilities.
I'm afraid there's, at least in Germany, there's still the majority that are critical about that. So talk about the positive examples, talk about the successful founders who are creating wonderful businesses that combine impact with return, because it's so critical to transform our economy.
And so final parting words for the crowd here, like one word of advice, what would that be?
Be proud of yourself and stay sane, because obviously you already discovered that this is a fantastic space to be in. And I know that sometimes it can be frustrating to know numbers and to be scared, like how are we going to solve this? But 200 years ago, no one expected that we can talk to someone in India on a device. So anything is possible, and we have to solve the biggest problems together as a
Thank you very
community.
much. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, as well, for the attention.
Thank you.